Good morning. We are live. Welcome to the stream. How's everybody doing? I'm so glad you're here. I'm first going to talk about the agenda for the next couple hours for this writing session. We are going to talk, oh gosh, I have feedback. Stand by. All right, that's better. The agenda today. I want to talk about this story I'm working on right now, this work in progress that I'm calling Runaway Story. I'm going to talk about where that's at. We're going to read a quick hit of poetry for inspiration, for language, from this adaptation of Ovid, adaptation translation by Ted Hughes. 2 work sessions, 2 Pomodoro 15-minute sections. We'll be talking in between. We'll be talking at the end. And generally, having a good morning. Welcome. It's the first time here. Asa Merritt, and a short fiction writer, doggedly, diligently sharing that process here on YouTube. So, the work in progress this morning is called Runaway Story. And Runaway Story is a piece that I started last week. I'm going to share that passage briefly. I want to share a passage from this story so you get a sense of exactly what my rewriting goals are for the next couple hours. Context is I've gotten really into kind of stream of consciousness thanks to this Norwegian writer John Fosse, Wolf even in the mix. Recently been reading a little bit of Wolf again. And so this story is definitely coming out of that tradition, and that has given me concerns. I'm anxious that it kind of is like indulgently backstory, this, that, and the third. But my goal for this particular session is to just identify the spine of the story. This is a short story. It has something of a beginning, middle, and end. But if I remember right, when I finished it, I didn't feel 100% specifically about the ending. So my goal here is to, as much as possible, avoid editorializing, getting critical around the stuff I'm worried about, and just focus on that one goal, which is come up with a story. Beginning, middle, and end, some kind of sense of conflict and stakes, just a dramatic narrative spine to sit this thing on, because that remains to be done, so why don't I just do that before all the stuff I have to worry about. Just so you have a sense of this story, I'm just going to read a little excerpt from it here. This is the current first paragraph. And for context here, I haven't even really looked at this. This is really rough. I'm just really putting myself out here and sharing you this piece, because I don't even know what I have on my hands yet. Let me pull it up here on my own screen briefly. Okay, I'm just going to read this first paragraph. I open the door as slowly as I can, even though the back door never makes noise, and my father never wakes up. Except for a phone call, because out here a phone call in the middle of the night means someone needs Dad's winch to get their car out of the snow, or needs Dad to get on a horse and help every other man off Dry Creek Road who can ride a horse, strangle cows that escaped a neighbor's pasture, or even go to the Bauman's when Rick Bauman beats on Jane and she calls desperately, and my dad listens, talking, and no one responds. And once I picked up the other phone and heard the crying and knew it was Jane. Everyone knew what the son of a bitch, as everyone called him, did to her. And everyone knew that one day somebody would kill him. It ended up not being my dad, but they did eventually kill him. Somebody did. Jane's brother, probably. He had it in him. That's what they said. And when he got out of jail, that's when it happened. And of course, no one said anything. Why would they? And Jane moved away. And we didn't get any more calls like that. So that's where things stand. That's the first paragraph of this story. As you can see, it's kind of immersive, it's discursive, it's very kind of, I just kind of went for it and wrote very associatively. And as I said, I'm kind of hung up, like, oh gosh. But I also want to trust it for now and just focus on the story. So that is my goal for Runaway Story today. Okay, let me get myself back over here. Get back to the agenda. Here we are. Next up, oh gosh, stand by. Thank you for your patience. Next up is just a little bit of poetry, and I really have gotten into the habit of this recently. For November, in lieu of novel writing month, I'm doing the Ray Bradbury challenge for myself, which is to read one poem a day, read one short story a day, read one essay a day. I don't think I'm going to get it every day, every time, but I'm trying. And the poetry part is really cool because I can just do it online here with y'all and share it. So my plan had been to work my way through this collection, the Oxford Book of English Verse, because it's all public domain. But some of these early anonymous poems are written in this Old English, and it's tough. So today, I'm grabbing from this book, which is called Tales from Ovid by Ted Hughes. I love Ted Hughes, and I love Ovid. We share a birthday, and I feel a kindred spirit to that Latin writing romantic poet. So I'm just going to read a couple stanzas. This is from part one of this book. We're 3 stanzas in, and this is about the creation of the world. Before sea or land, before even sky, which contains all, nature wore only one mask, since called chaos, a huge agglomeration of upset, a bolus of everything, but as if aborted, and the total arsenal of entropy already at war within it. No sun showed one thing to another. No moon played her phases in heaven. No earth spun in empty air on her own magnet. No ocean basked or roamed on the long beaches. Land, sea, air were all there, but not to be trodden or swum in. Air was simply darkness, everything fluid or vapor, formless. Whew! Ooh, such precision. And so with that, y'all, let us embark on the first Pomodoro session here. I'm going to cue this up for 50 minutes. We'll take a quick break, check in. If you're here, please let me know in the chat. Welcome. And I hope that you also have a great writing session right now. Sarah Ray Werner, Takashi Mateo. So glad y'all are here. 60 hangers, welcome to the mix. Let me know what you're working on. Folks, I hear it. It's a difficult morning. Honestly, having trouble getting started this morning, says Sarah Ray Werner. Takashi, I'm just doing a bit of writing. As long as anyone can write a sentence, that's a good writing session. I agree with that. All right, y'all, I'm going to put on the clock. Good luck, everybody. Happy writing. Happy Tuesday. Hi, everybody. We're back. Per usual, if you're in motion, if you're making progress, if the words are coming, please keep going. I wanted to share my progress. I wanted to share what happened for me in the last hour. Oh, I love writing. I really do. What I found in the last hour is that my initial concern about kind of the story was perhaps overstated. I think there actually is a really strong spine. And what I did here, and I think I'm going to make kind of like a replay overcap highlight reel of my week as a video later this week that you can find on my channel, and I'll show you this more clearly. For the time being, I'm just going to describe it to you. What I did when I was over there is that I read the story. So I read the story through, thought about it, really sat with it, tried to absorb it, tried to read it with fresh eyes. And then what I did here is I charted out kind of like the dramatic beats of this story, kind of the basic spine, there's a clear climax in this story. There's a clear beginning. This is about a kid running away from home, leaving this house where he lives with his abusive father and brother on his way to his aunt's house. So there's this like nice little, it's a kid running away in the middle of the night. It starts at this ranch, it ends at this house. So actually, narratively, there's so much there already that is really working. So I felt really good about that from the jump, and I wasn't fully anticipating that. So that was a really great discovery. While I was doing that, I had it just came to me that I should really be reading some William Faulkner short stories. That, I think, is actually what I'm going to do for the second half of this session. I'm trying to read as much as possible, particularly short stories, as this is the form I'm trying to pursue. And as the story is in the woods, as this story is kind of stream of consciousness, I am like, oh my God, William Faulkner. Duh, obviously, why am I not reading him right now? Probably because I haven't read a lot of William Faulkner. That is why I didn't think of him immediately. I've read his sort of scary short story, A Rose for Emily, which, by the way, quick plug, is in this collection of short stories. On this channel with my friend Sarah Ray Werner, we do a weekly story club working our way through this collection of horror short stories. That story is coming up. I've read that story before, and I read one of his books. I can't remember which one. Anyway, whatever. Point is, I didn't immediately think of him, but I thought of him now, and I'm just like, oh, this is going to be such a resource. And so sure enough, I went digging around a little bit and found one of his short stories online that I'm now going to read in the second half here of this work session this morning. And, just pivoting, right? Like I could just keep working on the story, but I want to kind of like, why not live in Faulkner for an hour before hopping back in? I think that's only going to help me. So here's an excerpt. This is the story I'm going to read. It's called Dry September. And this is by William Faulkner, the American lyricist, as it were. Just going to read this first paragraph here. I'm going to read this paragraph, and I do want to share another passage from my story that I'm excited about, and that the first draft here is more than 4,000 words, so there's a lot of material, and I did find a passage that I think gets to this is the sweet spot of stream of consciousness meets narrative. So I'm going to read you this little passage of Faulkner, and then I'm going to share that piece from my story. And then we'll get into the second work session. If you had a good session, do tell, do share what it is you're working on. Okay, here is this first paragraph of Faulkner's story. This is called Dry September. Through the bloody September twilight, aftermath of 62 rainless days, it had gone like a fire in dry grass. The rumor, the story, whatever it was. Something about Miss Minnie Cooper and a Negro, attacked, insulted, frightened, none of them, gathered in the barber shop on that Saturday evening where the ceiling fan stirred, without freshening it, the vitiated air sending back upon them, in recurrent surges of stale pomade and lotion, their own stale breath and odors, knew exactly what happened. I don't know anything about this story. I found it because of its length and I think I'm going to be able to read it in this next work session. And the title, Dry September, appealed to me. I don't, we'll see. I can't vouch for this story yet. I want to read it, but I do, even from that first paragraph, can see that classic kind of propulsive Faulkner, lyrical, living in the language, letting the sentences drive themselves, finding words, and, why can we not all aspire to that? Here is my passage that I like, and I'm not going to read all this, probably. I'm just going to kind of put it up there if you want to read it later. But I'm just going to read a little bit of this, and this, like I said, represents part of the story that I'm kind of into. It takes one little moment, as you'll see, and really goes deep into it and lives inside of it for quite some time and searches for all these different images to distill from this little moment in time. So I'm just going to read I'm going to skip around and read some of it that I like. This kid has stopped. He's riding his bike. He's running away, riding his bike to his aunt's, and he's taking a break, and he's eating a sandwich. I ate it and drank water and looked up, and the moon was clear again. No treetops, no. And it looked bigger than it had in the yard, dimmer because of the light, but it seemed closer, and I could see all these little craters you can see on it. And I ate my sandwich looking at the moon like that and drank my water and felt the little bit of sweat in my armpits. And then he goes on to describe these rabbits. He talks about how quiet it is. And I laughed a little, which felt silly, but it happened, and I heard the laughter on the empty, quiet road. Not all quiet, because the rabbits were out. So many damn rabbits, and you could hear them running in the brush because they ran at the laugh. But otherwise, it was silent, and the laugh and the sound of the rabbits running, and all that silence, just the laugh and the rabbits, it made me scared. And I put the other half of my sandwich back in the little pouch. Da-da-da-da-da. And he describes putting that sandwich back, and he gets back on the road. Anyway, I'm kind of into that. That felt good in the reread. That felt both propulsive from a narrative sense in that we're in the story as it's happening. It wasn't some of that flashback or rather expository material that we saw in the first paragraph of the story, which I'm nervous about. I really, really, really am the kind of writer that doesn't like to do that. I like to stay in the action of the story. And so this paragraph, we're in the action of the story. We're in the scene. We're still with this kid on the road. It's rich. It's vivid. It's sensual. But it's still thematic, if that makes sense. It's not pure story. You would never see that scene in an action movie. It's not an event, but it's eventful, if that makes sense. Anyway, so I think that is in the direction of where this story wants to live. And what I'm going to do now is read some Faulkner and see where I'm at after reading a Faulkner story and thinking like, okay, what can I take from this that I can then apply to my story? Whew. So, Mateo Leon Rodriguez, this is an old story, huh? Yes. To clarify, yes. Faulkner wrote, oh gosh, I don't know. I'll look that up for you when this story was written. Yes, Faulkner was a Southern writer living in the United States, in the South. And yes, we see in his writing throughout, a segregated South. That story was written 100 years ago, 1931. Yes, if that's what is summoning the idea of an old story to you. All right, everybody, it is 9:48 my time. I am going to put on the clock. I hope everyone is making progress. I hope, oh gosh, I don't know. This is great, right? This is as good as it gets. Reading and writing on a Tuesday morning in the rain. All right. Good luck, everyone. Gosh, everyone knows it's Lindy. Hi, Lindy. I really appreciate that. I'm so grateful. Thank you. I was on mute. Oh, gosh. What I was just saying was how powerful this story I just read was. I am so moved by this story, Dry September. William Faulkner. Context, I just read this story for uh, Dry September. Hopefully you can hear me now. Much better, thanks. Okay, thanks, Lindy. Y'all, what a story. Right, so the context of why I just read this story, Dry September by William Faulkner, is because I'm working on a story that is in the woods, it's rural, it's rich, it's felt, it's kind of stream of consciousness. And during the first hour of this session, while I was kind of reflecting on the story, having reread it, I thought of Faulkner, who I haven't read a lot of, but fortunately he came to mind as I was kind of brainstorming. And so I said, whoa, stop, let's get some Faulkner in the mix. And so this second session here, I read William Faulkner's story, and I'll just talk briefly about the story, but mainly the point here is what I can gain from this story in terms of my story. So I want to talk about that too. But first, just to uplift this story, it is a heartbreaking tale of the murder or the suggestion of a murder in the South of a wrongly accused man. It is vivid, it is human, it is so beautifully written. I just want to uplift a passage from this text. This is a passage from the story that I just finished reading here. And I want to read it out loud because it just goes to show how beautiful of a writer Faulkner is. So this is part 3 of Dry September by William Faulkner. The barber went swiftly up the street where the sparse lights, insects swirled, glared in rigid and violent suspension in the lifeless air. The day had died in a pail of dust. Above the darkened square, shrouded by the spent dust, the sky was as clear as the inside of a brass bell. Below the east was a rumor of the twice-waxed moon. Whew. Oh, gosh. Anyway, I just wanted to share that as one of a zillion passages in this story that was just so exquisitely written. What I can take from this story for my own writing for Runaway Story, which is the story that I'm writing right now, is, I guess, a sort of vote of confidence towards an aesthetic that is so open-hearted, that is so overtly, explicitly, unironically, unabashedly, genuinely emotional in its essence. And I feel so inspired by that. This is so clearly a story written before the era of irony that has characterized our time, post-70s or whatever you call it. I'm not a cultural critic, but this is just such a full-hearted story. And my story, Runaway Story, exists in that space where it's just this kind of uninhibited release of deep emotions. And I feel really inspired, having read some Faulkner, to do that, to pursue that kind of story with confidence. That's my takeaway from that read. I am also, another takeaway is keep reading Faulkner. My gosh, what a writer, what a titan. And thank you for being here. And everyone knows it's Cindy. Thank you for being here. 60 hangers, Mateo, Sarah, everyone else, Takashi. Grateful for you. I'm going to continue working on this story this week, I think, and we'll just see how far I get. It's Tuesday tonight. I'm going on a live stream with a couple other writers here on AuthorTube. That should be fun. Maybe I'll make some more progress then. But everyone have a great Tuesday. I'm going to call it here. I was going to keep going a little bit longer. But I almost need to recover from that story. So, I appreciate you. Talk soon.